There's a much bigger shock in the offing, and it's about to hit the headlines.
AM, online, TV and digital radio. This is BBC Radio Wales.
Rugby, the Scarlets coach Simon Easterby is warning it would be a disaster for them if Wales wing George North leaves a year early.
George North is a star product of the Scarlets Academy. Still only 20, he's rated as one of the best wingers in the world. If he goes, it'll be a huge story. So the Scarlets PR officer, Antonia Lamont, needs to get on the front foot.
Obviously, we've made it clear about our position in terms of discussing individual contracts. Just be mindful of that.
This press conference was already in the diary. It's supposed to focus on the next match, but now the media only wants to ask head coach Simon Easterby about one thing.
As a player like George North, how much do you want him here next season?
We want the best players available to us. George North is an exceptional talent. He's come through our region. We've supported him, and we're desperate to keep hold of him.
Just to clarify, just one thing. This isn't the Scarlets saying they're happy to let him go a year early from his contract.
No, I don't want him to go. I'm not asking George North to leave.
It's not easy, and it's not ideal really, and hopefully the press will give us a bit of respect and have an opportunity to deal with this in our own time.
Thank you very much. At this particular point, George is on contract to the Scarlets for next season, and as far as we're concerned, there's a lot of speculation that isn't accurate. There's a lot of speculation out there is making a lot of suggestions that George is actually leaving here. That could happen, but currently, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the business is concerned, there's no decision being made at all about George's future.
With no hard facts, rumours run riot.
Well, let's hope I don't have days like this every day of the week. There we are.
Messages and missed calls are piling up in Antonia's office. The first to be briefed is the Scarlets' chief executive.
Hi Mark, good afternoon. It's Antonia calling. I just wanted to bring you up to speed with the press conference this morning and just let you know a couple of things that were discussed. I've also had a quick look as to what the coverage is since then. So when you've got a second, if you could give me a ring back and I can bring you up to date with where we are. Thanks.
Lots of reps, okay? Happy? So boys, you push yourselves out there and just go as the tail gunner then, all right? Is that all right?
To sign George North a year before his Scarlets contract ends, any other club would have to pay the Scarlets to get him released.
We're not going to necessarily work from here, we're going to keep working across the field.
George could decide to stay, but if he goes, the Scarlets could earn a substantial sum, and that feeds the media frenzy.
There's an energy, definitely. It's a big Scarlet story. It's very big for our supporters in terms of the timing. We're about to launch season tickets, so it's commercially, there are considerations. It's a very big story on lots of levels. So, contract negotiations go on over time, and there are lots of different elements to it. It's not quite always as simple as it's sometimes played out in the media.
The media are desperate for details of the transfer talks. And Antonia needs to brief the Scarlets' general manager, who is about to go on air.
Oh, I have been told I've got a good face for radio, so...
Can you just give me an idea of what questions we're going to... You can't really... Well, what can be done? I think it's outside his remit to be talking about how to resolve this situation, because that's a much wider question, isn't it?
I'm the resident Welsh speaker, wheeled out when we need to hear the dulcet tones of heaven's tongue.
OK, thanks very much. Speak to you in a bit. OK, cheers. Bye-bye. OK. What is the Scarlets' current position on George North? And, how much of a blow would it be if he left?
So I won't use the term disaster then, shall I?
Yeah.
A disaster for Mark Davis would be the release of sensitive information while discussions are ongoing. What's not been made public is that back in January, the Scarlets board felt obliged to let George North's agent know that they'd had an unsolicited approach from a French club. The French money on offer to the player and to the Scarlets for releasing him was considerable.
Now, we'd had the same conversation the previous year and said, not interested, go away. This time, they were significantly more serious. And this time, the amount that they were prepared to table, to propose that we released early, was really significant.
But with rumours that English club Northampton are also now in the bidding, Mark is adamant that the club shouldn't respond to questions about what's going on behind the scenes. That puts pressure on John Daniel's Welsh radio interview, and Antonia needs him to be on message.
Well, John actually has got the ability to say anything right now, so there's a huge level of trust.
So mae Kenneth. Good, diolch, good. Wel, petai George North yn gadael y Scarlets, byddai'n siomedig. Mae George wedi dod trwy'r llwybr yma yn y Scarlets ers pan oedd ni'n ar 15, pan mae lot o bobl wedi gwneud buddsoddiad mewn amser a buddsoddiad emosiynol yn datblygiad George. Good. Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl.
A convincing performance, even if Antonia didn't understand a word.
Didn't say disaster.
Fantastic. Perfect.
Back at Parker Scarlets, supporters want to be kept in the picture about progress with other matters. The Supporters' Trust holds regular meetings with management. At this stage of the season, the talk is often about player transfers, but this year, there's an extra edge.
They are the supporters. Well, they are the club. It's right that they should ask, and it's right that we should tell them as much as we can. You know, individual detail is difficult.
In all fairness to the club, they front up to the supporters on a regular basis. This one in particular is quite timely because of what is happening, obviously, with George North, and we as supporters don't know as yet whether he's staying with us or whether he's going to Northampton.
I would like to see George go, but what will be, I suppose.
The fans aren't backward in coming forward.
George North has got 1 year left in his contract. We could have George North here next season on those terms that we negotiated 2 years ago if we went to 2. Presumably the club doesn't see that as the right way forward for us.
The burning question here is, what comes first, the rugby or the business?
You can't divorce the two. Believe me, what keeps me awake at night is paying the wages next month. You know, without the business, there is no rugby. We have to be sustainable. So, you know, the business or one player or one chairman, come to that, is never going to be bigger than the club. So the business, to an extent, yes, has to come first.
The Scarlets have offered George North as much as they can. It's nowhere near enough. So, they can hang on to him for another year, then watch him walk away with no return on their investment in developing him. Or, they can sell him now and use the fee, his salary, and his squad place to develop a new star.
We've gone as far as we can for the next contract. That's not going to be enough. Okay, then the next decision is, are we prepared to release early? And then it becomes a wider business context in terms of, okay, if we release early, can we continue to strengthen the wider squad? Will that help the overall picture?
But it's George North's future, not his performance today, that the press want to tackle.
George North, what was the message about his value to the side today, do you think?
He took his strides very well. You know, he looked sharp. So I was really pleased with his performance, with everything else that's been going on off the pitch.
How is he coping with that, do you think?
Well, you tell me.
Well, he's coping well on the pitch.
Exactly. So yeah, well, that's the most important thing.
Just before kick-off, the former Scarlets chief executive, Stuart Gallagher, has said that George has turned down an offer to stay in Llanelli. On the day that he's proved his value to the Scarlets, it now seems almost certain that he'll be leaving.
Is it disappointing though that Stuart should choose to intervene like that when he's not officially involved with the club anymore? It seems a strange thing to do.
I'm not going to comment on it, Graham.
It's not helpful for you though.
No, but it's not really it's really not something I'm going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
I want to concentrate on the rugby, and the most important thing is we got a result and we got a performance from players.
Stuart did say that.
Don't ask me any more questions about Stuart Gallagher because I'm not going to answer them. I don't know anything about it, so you may as well.
What Roland said is what he did say was that he gave George North turned down a contract to sign an extra year with it.
Right.
Okay. That's what he said. But,
I think Simon's made it clear that he's here to talk about these players and the performance today.
Just give him a chance to do that.
But the George North transfer situation is now becoming entangled in the wider politics of Welsh rugby. Less than a week after Judgment Day, regional executives are back in Cardiff for a press conference. In a statement, the WRU has criticised them for not working with the union to keep top players in Wales. And there are accusations that the Scarlets opened discussions to transfer George North without his knowledge. Tensions which have been mounting for months have finally erupted.
Given George North has probably been the catalyst for this. The union said that the Scarlets had offered him to other clubs without his knowledge. True or false?
Any discussions that Scarlets have at any time regarding any player are held either with that player or more generally, as is industry practice, with that player's representative. The stark facts are that we held a board meeting on the 28th of January where one of our directors stated that he'd been approached by a French club for the second time actually to ask if we would be prepared to release George early from his contract. So the first thing we did was that particular director went back to the club in question and said, well, okay, we might be prepared to consider it, but you need to speak to George's agent. The fact that there was a statement put out after that that said that we had opened discussions with clubs outside of the UK in December, categorically not true.
Parker Scarlets gets the news it's been bracing itself for. Team manager Garen Evans has just heard that George North's agent has been on the line. The player has signed for Northampton.
Emotions are quite low here, and that's amongst the management and coaches. So when you consider then the players, it is difficult, but we have to focus on trying to get to the top four. With everything that's going on in the background, it does take away that focus.
A few days later, 3 weeks after the rumours first emerged, confirmation that George North is leaving the Scarlets is finally made public.
It's huge news. Huge news. It's part of the game, isn't it?
Part and parcel of the game, perhaps, but for the coaches, that doesn't make it easier to handle.
The business is not sustainable based on emotion. The business is only sustainable based on numbers and cash, frankly. The most important thing that we need to do is to be here tomorrow. That's our first responsibility.
As ever, for the next home game, the whole Scarlets family gathers to cheer their heroes on. But it's been a tough few weeks, and feelings are still running high.
Ladies and gentlemen, I played for this club for 16 seasons. It's the only club I played for. I worship the club. This week has been a bit of a sad week. You can't get away from it, and I'm not going to hide away from it. I don't know the facts, I don't know the figures, I don't know anything about money involvement in the club. But we lost a young man called George North to Northampton. Now, those people in higher positions than me will say, we had to do it, that's the way it goes, and that's the way rugby business is run these days. The sad thing for me is that we lost a 20-year-old. And that does kick me in the stomach a little bit, that we lost a 20-year-old who's come through the system. And I wish George, please God, have a great time in Northampton, become a British Lion, go on and achieve everything you want to achieve in life. But always remember that you were a Scarlet at one time of your life. We will go on, but for God's sake, it's about time Welsh rugby got its act together.